Hello, this is Ares with ZSA, and today I want to take you on a tour of the Moonlander's default layout. Before we start, I want to let you know this is by no means the ultimate layout for the Moonlander or anything like that. For your workflow and your applications and use cases, I have no doubt that parts of this layout are going to look silly. So before we even play the tour, the most important button is this one, Modify Layout. This is just a starting point. With that said, let's get started. Gonna hit Play Layout Tour, and our first key is right here, Capsword. This is a pretty unique feature. It's like Caps Lock, but for one word. So you hit this key, and the next word you'll type will end up being in capital letters on your screen. This is handy for developers who often have to type constant names in capitals. Kind of a handy feature. You can remap if you have no use for it. Now, to move through the tour, I'm going to be using the right arrow on my keyboard. I could also click Next. Our next key is the Z key, which is our first dual function key that we meet. Sometimes people email us and say, oh, my Z key doesn't work. Or if they're American, they say my Z key. But really what it is it's a key that does two things. You tap it quickly and you get a Z, or if you hold it down, you get a control. Many people like to do this with their home row keys, ASDF and such, but we on the default layout wanted to demonstrate this. So we only used a couple of these. So this is one. And then right here, the slash key is the right control. That's the other. Actually, there's a few others. So we have this Command and Win key, which is also a single quote. If you're using Windows and you just hold it down for a moment and let go, your start menu is going to pop up. If you use a Mac, this is, of course, an important modifier key. And again, just tapping it gives you a single quote. Tapping it with a Shift key pressed will, of course, give you a double quote, as you would expect. Now, Hyper. Hyper is a handy key. It's really Alt, Control, Shift, and Win or Command all smushed down at once. This may seem like a silly idea, but really, it's good for system-wide shortcuts. So no sane single application you have is going to use all of these modifiers along with a key to trigger something, which means you can suddenly use this as, take a screenshot or anything like that. Like any system-wide shortcut becomes just a two-key shortcut, and you're never going to conflict with an existing one on a given application. Then we have Mint, and that's kind of like Hyper, but I wanted to call it Mint because it's a little bit less hyper, right? It's got one key less. Also good for system-wide shortcuts, and it's better than Hyper on Windows. Then if you use Vim, you put escape here. Again, this is another dual function key. You tap it once for escape, or you press and hold it to get a left control. Nice for people who use escape often. The idea, by the way, with the Moonlander is you don't want to press these with your thumb. It's really for your index finger. So you want to kind of shift your hand around and hit this. And the idea is you want to assign this to a key that you don't use, this is not a space bar. It's not a key that you're going to use with every word, but occasionally. This location for the backspace comes from Colmac, which is what I use, like it says here on the tour. It is really handy. We also put a backspace here, but either one tends to work really well in practice. Very comfortable spots for a backspace. Now, if you're bilingual like me, then tapping this key with Windows is going to send Alt Shift under Windows, or rather it will send Alt Shift or Option Shift under any operating system, but with Windows, it'll make it switch to your other locale. If you are a monolingual user, remap this. Another thing, I kind of touched on this before with a single quote, but another thing that people sometimes get confused on, how do you send an @ symbol or a hash or whatever? You just hit Shift and whatever number is associated with that symbol on your regular keyboard. And that works just fine with the Moonlander, just like with any other keyboard you have connected. You can also create keys that are just those symbols, but all that does is uses a single key to send Shift and 2. Okay, now we're getting into layers. So a layer is a whole set of keys, kind of like a Shift key on steroids, right? So here we have a dual function layer switching key. If you tap it quickly, you get a backtick. If you press and hold it, you find yourself in layer 1. Let go, and you're back in layer 0, which is this layer. Another way to activate layer 1, you tap this key once to toggle into layer 1 and then tap it again to exit. So in this case, you won't have to keep holding this key. You'll just kind of be more permanently locked into layer 1 until you tap it again and pop out. So layer 1, we got symbols, numbers, F keys, and lighting control. And also this escape key, which is in the more traditional spot for an escape key. A whole bunch of F keys here, F1 through F12. I said it's a full set on the tour, but really there's F keys up until F26 or something crazy like that. We do support them all. You can add all the higher F keys to your layout if you need them and use them. The numpad is going to take a little bit of training, and I touch on this later in the tour, but if you want to use this numpad, we have a feature called live training, and that feature has a special mode just for training on numbers and symbols. So definitely handy for getting used to that. Then we got a symbol layout here, and this is what I also touched on before. This has all of those keys that normally require shift to be pressed. So they're all here, but you don't have to press the shift key to trigger them. And they're also kind of laid out in a way that I think makes sense. Like you got all your brackets next to each other and so on. Lighting controls. This whole area is lighting controls. So this would be the master toggle. If you want to just turn the lights off, you just switch to layer 1 and hit this key and the lights go off. This scrolls through all the different animation modes. This ups the brightness and reduces the brightness. And this allows you to shift through colors. You can shift through the hues, and it's a wheel. So this goes up the wheel and down the wheel. You can also map specific keys to specific colors. Tap a key and the whole keyboard lights up in a given color. That's one thing, but there's also per layer and per key colors. And that shows up on a sidebar when you're editing your layout, and it basically allows you to highlight one or more keys in a given layer so that when you flip to that layer, you remember what those keys are. Now, if you do use per key and per layer colors, then this key is going to help you. It's called toggle layer colors. And what this does, it takes you back and forth between manually controlling the lights and all the animations and stuff right on the keyboard and the layer and key lighting you predefine in Oryx. Okay, now we're going to move back to layer 0 here. And from 0, if you want to switch to layer 2, you hold down the semicolon key. It's another dual function key. And here we are, layer 2. The Moonlander itself has a buzzer inside, a little kind of chiptune speaker. And when you plug it in, it gives a little chirp that can get annoying sometimes. So this key will shut that down and toggle all the audio features off. We also have a music mode. If you just want to kind of jam on your keyboard, you flip to music mode and it'll just play music. This is really great for kids, by the way. If you want to let a kid kind of like mess around with a keyboard without actually pressing anything on your computer, this is fun. Then we have a whole bunch of different music modes that you can cycle through. You can use the Moonlander to control your mouse cursor without having to flip on any particular accessibility features on your operating system. I think it's kind of clunky. It's not a mouse replacement. I definitely use a trackball myself. Sometimes I use a trackpad too. This is fun. It's kind of useful, but don't throw your mouse away just yet. Then media keys. So this is pretty much my most used key on layer 2 on my own layout. And I use it like a cord, right? So it's right next to the key I use to flip into layer 2. I hold the layer 2 toggle down there, the semicolon, and then I tap this with my pinky to play and pause. We have track back and track forward and volume keys. And finally, we have the reset key. Now, when you flash the keyboard with new firmware, you're going to have to reset it. And you can use a paperclip for this. There is a little hole that you can stick a paperclip into. But if you don't have a paperclip handy or you keep losing it like I do, you can just switch to and hit the top right key and your keyboard will flip into reset mode and will allow you to flash the firmware. And that is it. That's our tour. Thank you for watching, and I hope this layout is a useful base for your modification and customization.